You're listening to a main feed episode. Go to patreon.com/Celtic Ligers where €5 a month gets you weekly full-length episodes, stray bonus content and access to the back catalogue. Also helps cover hosting and gives us money for sweeties. Thank you. Celtic Ligers.
Recorded 7th of May 2025.
What's happening in the world that you're fascinated by at the moment or is on your mind?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Because there is... Well, this isn't answering your question at all, but I'm reading a book called Bungalow Bliss. Or it's called like Little Republics. Have you ever heard of Bungalow Bliss?
No.
Never heard of it either, but it was this architect in the 70s. He was working in Meath. And over in England, there used to be like little books of like house designs. So he did one for Ireland, and he came up with like 25 different designs for bungalows. The idea is that you didn't need an architect. You could just like get this book and build it yourself. So he's responsible for like, it's sort of like the epidemic of ugly Irish houses. The book isn't framed like that, but he just designed like every ugly little bungalow and later 2-story house around Ireland.
Yeah.
It's quite a legacy, you know?
I need to get through it or read it, but like, I was reading like Sins of the Father, the Conor McCabe book.
Oh, yeah.
And at the start of it...
I have one more. I have one more thing.
Oh, yeah.
Before you go on, there's a very small point in the book, but one of the things, there was a drive for housing, and part of it was you had a lot of people who, they no longer like doing agricultural work and like build your own house in the like traditional way, because there was like in the 70s and 80s there were all these multinational companies coming in, setting up factories in Ireland, in the West. And they wanted somewhere that was like rural, but connected by highways, right? Like by roads. And one of the reasons why that was so in demand was because they felt it would be harder to organize, for the workers to organize a union. You know, because if they're in the middle of a city and there's like a community of workers, so unions might naturally form. Whereas if you're like in the middle of nowhere and everyone's commuting from like an hour away, you know, it's harder for union activity to start.
It's also setting up like the stakes, you know, as in if you're given your own little plot, then you become a bit more like you want to protect it. Whereas if those kind of barriers are broken down, where you're like living next to, you have to share space, then you think about it differently.
Yeah.
Like that kind of mindset. I remember when I lived in Kilkenny, that, you know, we were living in terraced houses, and we had a cat in the house, and there was a person down the street who was just going fucking nuts about like the cat is coming into my garden, and it was like, there's not really much I can do about that, man. And like besides not having a cat, but it was that thing where they're getting really annoyed, and it's like, well, this is what happens when you're like living next to people. When you're living in a community, You have to like share space. You know, you might have your own little bit of space, but ultimately you are sharing. I got neighbors. Sometimes I can hear them. Maybe they're doing things that kind of bother me. Maybe they're doing things that are nice, like barbecues, and we're invited or whatnot. But there's like a kind of to and fro with the community. Whereas if you are out like these bungalows are in Ireland, and you got like a garden at the back, a bit out the front, and then like your neighbors are like, you know, far enough away from you, like you can just be like in this area, and you feel, yeah, as well as, you know, being isolated when you're heading to work and like having less opportunities to organize, you also have that stake where it's like, I need to defend my homestead, my plot.
I think people used to call them little republics. It was sort of like a David McWilliams style, you know, funny name, but
it's what I call the little republics.
I
always love when he does that. I think we read it out, but him like at the Oireachtas, where he's like panicking because he was at like a public accounts committee, I believe, or some sort of like a tribunal for the banking crisis, and you know, he'd been spoken to by the Minister for Finance about the bank bailout, which he was like gloating about in his articles, but then when he was confronted about it, it was suddenly like shitting a brick. And he keeps doing that same stuff of like, as I talked about in my book, The Pope's Children, as I mentioned in this book here, and then they're just eventually people having to say like say less, okay? Like, because you're eating up all the fucking time and not answering enough of these questions. But anyway, the reason I want to bring up, it's related, you know, the Conor McCabe thing, but just that idea where it's like suburbs were created by this guy, and you're like, I can't believe they were created. You know what I mean? That there was a moment in time where it's like we weren't like the way you just set up of the bungalow, like that there is a date with, there are people who are alive now, maybe less so, but where this was introduced within a few generation, like that's in living memory. And these things which are now like, well, you know, home ownership is just in the DNA of Irish people. Like that, we just like it, we just want it. We can't talk about apartments because we're not an apartment people. And you're like, it's like this is all made up. You made this all up.
Is that book good? Since I'm reading it as well. I have it.
Well, I read like the first few pages. I'm not a good reader, so it's been taking me quite a while. I wanted to read his book Money first, and that was actually I thought because it was shorter it would be easier, but actually I found that a lot more challenging. I think the writing in the Sins of the Father for My Money is a lot smoother, so I'm interested in like finishing it. I mean, the one thing I wanted to talk about this week is, it seems stupid to talk about it, but I saw this thing that Spicebag posted about the trickler.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Did you send it to me?
It kind of just... Yeah, I sent it to you, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'll read it out, because I saw some other people posting about it as well. So Spicebag puts out... Will I read this? Is this good?
Yeah, because I sent it to you as well.
And I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Yeah. Because we potentially might have different reactions to it. So the tricolour emoji starts off with that. Then it goes, the tricolour will be a right-wing symbol soon if it's not front and centre at counters. Being allergic to your own flag is moronic and damages your legitimacy as a national movement. A sea of red and pink flags without the hard-won symbols of Irish nationalism plays into the right-wing narrative that the left is inherently anti-Irish. Fly the tricolour if you don't want it to end up like the St. George's flag in England. The left have a tendency to abandon things that are being co-opted by political opponents. In a country where nationalism, socialism, and patriotism go hand in hand, this would be extremely damaging. Look no further than the Provo-Sticky split in the 1970s for an example of the left losing legitimacy by putting the red before the green during a crisis. You're not just fighting the domestic right, you're fighting US and UK conservative media and Zionism. Ireland is unique in Europe as a post-colonial state, and we can be unique in how we fight our culture war. Nationalism should not be given away. The left should not become the generic caricature pushed by right-wing media. Our national flag should vastly outnumber all other symbols. Is that the... That's, I don't know if it keeps going. It just says it is in the post that I'm reading.
Yeah.
But maybe it's... Wait, it says it is a symbol of resistance.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking a lot about this. Particularly because it got such a good reaction from people. I don't know how you feel about it, but personally, I'm not too pushed about the tricolour.
No, neither am I. I hate flags. I think it's stupid. I think it's cynical. And I think like is in like, you know, when Starmer was just slapping the Union Jack on everything. Or like, you know, the Irish independence groups, you know, and they're just putting the Irish flag on everything. It's just, they're like, oh, we need to be doing that. And I was like, fucking why? And it was like, if you want to do it. Wave the flag.
Yeah.
But I just find this thing where it's like, you got to wave the flag to show your patriotism. It's like, no, you don't. And then also the kind of besmirching of people, oh, you're red and pink flags. And like, it's that same left bashing that we were commenting on last week where they're, you know, the counter demonstration to the anti-migrant demonstration, that they're getting criticized for being, the fucking blue hairs out there holding their fucking communist flags. It's like, all right, man, well, you go out and do something.
Yeah.
Okay? Like,
I also feel like, you know, people carry flags they identify with. So I think it's telling that the people who are at the counter demonstration don't identify with the Irish flag. You know, like Spicebag's, his argument is like, you know, we should be like a nationalist movement. And I don't see the value. Nationalism is sort of like, to me, it's inherently conservative now. You know, like it's just be proud of the country where you were born. So like saying you should be more nationalist, it's not a particularly exciting idea for me. Particularly when we have like, you know, if you're an Irish socialist, you have the plough and the stars, you know? Like you have other flags. So like it really just sounds like he feels slightly, if I'm honest, it feels like he's slightly embarrassed because he likes the tricolour. But like if he turned up to the protest, the counter protest was flying a tricolour, no one would say anything to him. Like it'd be completely welcome.
No one would stop him. No one, like, and then what would happen if like, oh, everybody goes out there and is waving the tricolour, and then you're like, what difference would that make? I was like, all of a sudden our movement has grown tenfold overnight because we started waving the tricolour, because that's what these people are. They're like magpies for the tricolour. They're just like, you know, being drawn to it like the light in an anglerfish or something, you know? It's like...
I think as well... Well, it just really feels like a battle over aesthetics, you know? Like a flag is a flag, and it's not like Ireland's ever been, like since the Free State was established, it's not like it was ever a particularly progressive country. Like it got pretty on board with the extreme Catholic conservatism pretty quickly, you know? So as a nation, there's nothing much, in my opinion, there's nothing much to be proud of. Like as a people, I mean, you know, I do like the Irish culture. I think we've, you know, but it's not like, I wouldn't put that down to nationalism. And I wouldn't put it down to anything that the flag particularly represents. Like that's how I always feel it. That's how I feel about the flag.
Yeah, and I don't think support for the flag means that you're more Irish than somebody else.
Yeah.
You know? And then, like, I guess the issue that I had with it is this, it's a triangulating that isn't any different to Starmer. Now, I know you used Starmer already as an example of him putting the Union Jack on everything, but this is slightly different, which is there ever a thing where you just go out and say your politics and what you think and what you believe in and try to convince somebody rather than think about how they're looking at you and how they're perceiving you and how you can modify your behavior to attract them? Do you know? I know that there's some of that needed in organizing, but the idea of going like, you need to like, maybe this is uncharitable interpretation of what he's saying, but you need to wave the tricolor so the shitheels across from you look at it and come and join your movement, you know, that they feel at home, because once they see a tricolor, then they know, oh, great, that means that they're Irish. It's like, you know, I don't know. Like,
I think in this post is not, I wouldn't be surprised if he believes that, but I think in this post he's not even saying that. He's just saying like, we should get the tricolor and they shouldn't. Like, it really feels like he's just trying to descend into a battle over who gets the tricolor. And I don't know, it's not a very important argument to make.
And bringing up like the St. George's flag as well, and like soon that'll just be associated with racists. I was like, well, wasn't it always associated England? Like the St. George's flag, I don't know the history of it, but like England and Great Britain, you know, being like colonial empires, you know, isn't that always, that flag is always going to be synonymous with racism? And then like nationalism, well, the certain degree of nationalism that gets off on the fucking flag, okay, it's always going to be pretty base to me. So like these symbols are always going to be like, our team are better than your team. So they're always going to be embraced by like those type of people who would be racist, essentially, you know?
Yeah.
Like there's a reason that they're the ones that are flying it as often as they are. Like, again, you know, you can say we need to reclaim it, but you can't say like the left needs to do this. It was like, you do it, okay? You do it if it's important to you.
Yeah.
But like, again, like you were saying, like you identify with the flag. I don't necessarily identify with it, and maybe it's just a piece of it. Just doesn't mean anything to me. So like, why would I go out and buy the flag to bring to the protest to wave, except if I'm just being cynical about it and thinking that, oh, the other team are going to love this, and then again, like that's not the type of politics that I like.
Yeah. So it just seems like, and also like I could be wrong, but like part of, I think I was talking to someone else about this, and she made the point that it's like, why would we cede some of our revolutionary history to the other side, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I know I could be wrong, but I feel like the most revolutionary ones in the Rising, particularly, were like internationalists, you know, like James Connolly.
Mm-hmm.
He was an internationalist. Or didn't he say like, an Irishman shouldn't cast a stone into a crowd lest he hits his clansman, something like that. It would basically be like,
oh, look at the flag.
We're all one.
The thing he said about the flag in general.
Yeah. I just never got the sense that, I feel like our revolutionary history was about self-determination, you know? Like the Irish people should be able to like control their own country, and the more revolutionary ones were saying like, we should, you know, that we should be able to control it on every level, including like economically. You shouldn't get, like, getting control means getting rid of landlords and getting rid of like but today have been getting rid of like international companies that influence our policy without our control. I don't get the sense that they were like, yeah, the most important bit about revolution is the flag.
The fucking flag.
Uh,
I mean, like, maybe we're being like unfair to Spicebag. Maybe the response would be like, no, like, I'm not saying that's the only thing. I'm just saying that it's an important part, and we need to embrace this stuff to try and kind of build the movement and make it the left not look alien. But I also find that because that's what he's saying with the red and pink flags and the left kind of cannibalizing itself.
I don't think this is an example of like of the left cannibalizing itself, because, like I say, but like say if like say during the H Block protest, people turned up and there was like different groups, there was like different, like there was like plumbers against the H Blocks, and there was like a group from Cork that were like gays against the H Blocks. They turned up and they represented a faction. So like when you're seeing a protest, that's like a counter protest to anti-immigration, and you turn up and you see someone who's like a trans flag, and you see someone who's like whatever flag, those are like factions that are turning up to protest the demonstration, right? So if you don't see any tricolours there, I think it's more indicative. It's not that the left have abandoned the tricolour, it's that whatever faction of the left to identify with the tricolour didn't turn up. I think his reasoning is a bit reversed. Like,
yeah, and I mean, the thing that I was trying to point out with the red and pink as well is just how dismissive it is.
Yeah.
There's that thing of like, oh, these are unserious student politics. Like, red is obviously always associated with like socialism, communism. The pink might be could potentially be like a reference to like PBP, and PBP are constantly getting criticism for having their banners at things. Like every single time, let's say there's a big massive demonstration about whatever topic of the day it is, you'll always find somebody online going, PBP hijacked this by putting their flag at the top of it. And then, the same people are also likely to be like, we need to embrace the tricolour. Maybe I'm accusing people there. But you know what I mean? Like, as in, we need to build a mass movement, and then anybody who attempts to do so is always criticized for doing so. And I also think the dismissive nature of the comment about red and pink flags is almost like, no, I believe in socialism as well, but we need to package it for these shit munchers because they'll understand it better if the tricolour is wrapped around it. But it's like the word socialism itself, where it's, if you're watching any of these panel shows, they'll be like, well, we just know socialism doesn't work. Like, it's no matter what way you package it, they're going to find a way to make socialism the dirty word. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you see a group of people and they're out on the steps, and maybe they're outnumbered while there's a big like thousands marching, waving their tricolours, like, don't be given out to them for the way. Like, what I see is that he saw this group and he was like, oh, this is embarrassing. Like, people wouldn't join this movement if they're going to see the trans flag, and they're going to be like, this squishy, just those fucking lefties who pie in the sky aspirations, and we need to make it more accessible. And I think potentially that's true about being accessible, but I don't know if this is the way that you make it acceptable. I don't think the tricolour is the reason why people aren't flocking to these movements. And just don't be having a go at them, the people who stood out there, who actually like put themselves, in front of these fascists.
Yeah. I told something about why why socialism sort of cringe, you know what I mean? And there's always this impulse to like Like, I think one of the things about socialism, it does require, like, educating people, you know? Like, it's not... Because of, like, the structure of things, the way the world works, like, socialism, it's not an intuitive concept to people. Like, as in, people aren't naturally going to end up being socialist. You know? It requires, like, going out and talking to people, and, like, it's like a part of it is like an education, you know? And I think it really embarrasses people when you see socialists turn up, and I think we would like if the working class in Ireland just could sort of spontaneously emerge with socialism. And when you see this thing about the tricolour, it's like, sometimes I think it's like, well, if we just make enough concessions, if we make them comfortable enough, they'll spontaneously become socialist. You know, if we have the tricolour, it'll show them, I don't know what. Whereas that doesn't happen. And so I think this thing of like, we gotta make everyone as comfortable as possible with socialism, with the socialist movement, it doesn't work. That's just sort of, there's a word for it, like, not appeasement, but like concessionism, you know? Whereas really what you have to do is maintain it. You have to just talk to people. Like, that's it. Like, arguing about the flag, it doesn't do half as much good as the people who go out and, like, turn up to, you know, strikes, or turn up to people who are getting evicted, or whatever, you know, or even running for PPP. You know, it's like, the most important part is you are talking to people and helping people. The argument of the flag is, to me, it's just nonsense. It's just like, it's not going to change ideas. It's not going to do anything. It's just a symbol. And it's such a muddied, complicated symbol. I don't know, it just doesn't... I don't think it's going to convince anyone either way. Because it's not like leftists hate the tricolour. They just don't. And like, it's not like if someone turned up with a tricolour, they'd be like booed out of it.
Well, I'm also like, you know, there's a number of things that make me very reactive to that post at the moment, which obviously was the moment caught on real time last week where you told me Ireland's opinion on the protest outside the GPO to counter the ones coming down O'Connell Street, where it was like, oh, these fucking lefties, and geez, it makes you not want to join the anti-racist march, doesn't it? And like, you know, just fucking, yeah. And then so that annoys. But then also previously, his defense of Garen Noon, saying like, oh, Garen Noon was, you know, articulating a point that a lot of people feel, and we can't shout down people. There is this sort of thing about like being embarrassed about the left. You know, like, this isn't what he's saying, so it's unfair of me to say. I'm just saying it just gives me the same vibes as when you go, you know, like, when Biden was saying that they got crucified in the midterms because of their support for defund the police, the Democrats back in 2020, or when they said that, you know, Kamala Harris was like, oh, she's just too progressive on trans rights and we need to downplay that trans stuff. And it's like, again, it's just a movement that doesn't take all those people with you. You know, I just don't really, you know, I know that maybe you don't go all in. You're trying to convince somebody who might be on the fence. You don't go like full communism on day one, okay? Like in your talks to them. I don't know, but the point that I'm getting at is that, like, I don't feel the need to be hiding anything either. I don't feel the need to be like, oh, we'll wave the tricolour just to get them on side and then we'll convince them. You know, it's like, I think, you know, you should trust that people are intelligent enough to know this stuff. And if you don't think they are, then that's a problem. Like that's a problem that needs to be addressed by like what you were saying with like the educating, and maybe it takes a long time to do that, but it's because the forces are aligned against you in such a way, you know, when you think about like, you know, the mainstream media in Ireland, the furthest left-wing voice that is allowed in popular commentary would be somebody like Fintan O'Toole.
Yeah.
You know, he'd be the most high-profile one, or Blind Boy, and this isn't to throw too much shade at Blind Boy. It's just, you know, these aren't like the amount of like right-wingers who are out there, you know, in the, you know, air quotes center right, who are talking about migration being an issue, and then on the far right talking about migration being an issue. Like they far outnumber the voices who are saying the opposite, you know?
Yeah. It just feels like an aesthetic thing. Like Spicebag he saw a picture,
yeah, exactly.
and he was like, I like the look of the far right protesters better than I like the look of the.
Well, I don't know if it would be like go that far, but I definitely think that, you know, there is an element, we've talked about it as well, of just the cringe of like looking at it and then getting kind of like irritated and being like, why do you have to be this way? But then like, instead of, you know, interrogating yourself and being like, why was my reaction to be like that? You know, or maybe he did, and his interrogation led him to be like, oh, it's because they don't have enough tricolors. But I think that, like, you know, that there's a kind of hardiness and a kind of, you know, the epidemic of male loneliness, and why are the Andrew Tates of the world able to galvanize so much support amongst these disenfranchised men, and how can we create that in the left to get people on side? And the answer is tricolors.
Yeah.
You know? And maybe like he'd go like, that's not the only answer. Read my fucking blog. Okay, yeah, fine. But I'm just responding to this post because when you saw the counter demonstration, it was like, you know, embarrassment and annoyance. And it feels like this is what you were saying, which is like the left needs to be more nationalistic and kind of appealing to that. And I don't want to be copping out and being like, no, actually, we're right and we don't need to appeal to that. Obviously, I want the movement to grow, and I don't like that these forces are on the rise. But I think that it's a bit simplistic to say that it's kind of like, oh, you're just being weird with your red and pink flags as opposed to being normal with your tricolors.
Yeah. I think Spicebag has a very particular vision of an Irish movement, and it's based on Republican nationalist ideas. And I think that's certainly one aesthetic that's in there. But, you know, like that thing I read last week by Alex, it was like, the people on the counter demonstration are also working class. You know, they're just they look different or they act differently, but like materially they're the same.
Yeah. There was you know, there's been a number of protests that have taken place across the country. One in Kinvara, which is very disappointing. That's where my parents live now, and I suppose it's been my family home for the past 10 years, I'd say. But Kinvara has a very, very active Palestine solidarity movement, and they've managed to get like an occupied territories bill enacted in Galway County, and they, you know, were canvassing in the locals and the general, you know, trying to make sure that candidates were supporting Palestine. You know, it's been very, very active, and people are getting burnt out and tired from it. And again, like I pointed out last week, a lot of if you feel like there's a lack of response to this, a lot of it can be attributed to that there's a lot of activism going on for Palestine, which is taking time away from this other stuff. And, you know, and I, you know, in many ways, like correctly so. And it's just a heartbreaker that it's happening at this moment in time. Anyway, the point is there was a hotel in Kinvara that's been closed for years. My mum, who's a listener, can correct me if any of this information is wrong. And apparently, they used it to house Ukrainian migrants. But now they are going to be moving the Ukrainian families and housing like non-Ukrainian migrants. And now suddenly people in the town are like, oh, we have with this, actually the town hasn't had a hotel in years and we need to do something about this and how much it's negatively affected tourism. And they're looking for every reason to, like a group of people within the town, not everybody, but a sizable amount of people, like as is happening around the country, are kind of protesting this and trying to prevent basically non-Ukrainians from being in there. And it's just openly racist, and it's heartbreaking to see. And it's been devastating so anyway. And then the other one that's happened that's worth mentioning, there's a protest happening in Letterkenny, and there was a counter protest there. I have the RTE article in front of me. More than 1,000 people are estimated to have attended a protest in Letterkenny, County Donegal, which organisers said was about countering illegal immigration, while several hundred people took part in a counter protest near the same location. So I was watching a video of that counter protest, and the counter protest was also waving tricolours. So, they were waving the flag. Okay, cool. There's still several hundred of them and 1,000 of the other fucking people.
There's also they were waving the tricolour. So the left do use it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it really feels like he was just looking at this one thing and he was getting annoyed that there weren't enough tricolours at it. It feels like a bit tunnel vision. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I just find if you're criticizing the people who are out there, then I've felt that the instinct has been, so like you defend Karen Noon and then you criticize the left wingers who are out there at these counter demonstration. It was just like, because they didn't show that they were patriotic enough.
Let's take our flag back. Take it back. Take our flag back.
Did you see that tweet I just sent you?
No.
It's quite funny. So Ruth Coppinger was apparently on the Dáil plinth. The plinth, they get asked questions by reporters. So a gripped a gripped blogger asked her a question and she just refused to answer it. And she said she refused to answer it. And then all these other political correspondents started giving out to her, basically saying that she was like silencing. Let me see here. I refused to answer a question on immigration from Gript just now on the Dáil plinth. He immediately was rallied around by a few political correspondents that he was a member of the press council. If some journalists want to normalise them, fine, but I'm not feeding their hate mongering. And it was shared by, until just this minute, one of my favourites, Louise Byrne, the one who I thought was kind of, anyway, she writes The Mirror, yeah. I'm the journalist Ruth is talking about. We decry when things like this happen in the US. You can agree or disagree with people, but we have a free press in this country, and I'll defend any press council member's right to ask politicians questions. Fuck off.
Grift is not a normal media outlet. It exists to promote far-right propaganda of racism, transphobia, homophobia, and macho culture. I'm not feeding the hate-mongering outlet that endangers so many people I know and represent. Grip won't defend a free press despite your solidarity. That is true. Actually. That's because John McGurk, well, not free press, but the guy who has been talking about this hate speech law is anti-free speech law. We need to get rid of this stuff. People should be allowed to say what they want. All of a sudden, Kneecap, it's like, no, actually, they should go to prison because they're terrorists. But anyway, it's not the same as a free press, but it's still that hypocrisy that they have where they'll be like, we're defenders of the truth being told, but then obviously just use like made up statistics and just they're not fucking journalists. They are like lobbyists for racism. Yeah. One of the replies Ireland needs more racism, transphobia, homophobia, and macho culture, or it will not survive. Commie scum like you.
Who said that?
This guy, Max Amalek, just some random guy. Commie scum like you are responsible for this. Ireland is a white country for white people. Don't like it. Feel free to head off to Pakistan.
Yeah, cool. Good.
Yeah, thank you.
It's just, I just kind of despair. Like these, like I've seen these articles that'll come out where somebody will be like, oh, they're going to open up a fun fair. And then somebody will just be in the replies, yeah, they're probably going to fucking fill it with migrants and I won't even be. And you're just like,
yeah, it's like, it hasn't even happened yet.
It's bad enough that you live in that world.
Yeah.
You have to inflict it upon me all the time. That's all you are now. Oh, this is just hateful cunt.
I always do find it funny when they're like, just getting angry at their own hypothetical, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's probably going to happen. It's going to ruin my life. Like, well, you're already angry.
Yeah. You're living in the world, okay? You've created that world and you're living in it, okay?
Yeah.
And you're making yourself angry about it and more violent towards everybody else because of something that you've made up in your head.
Do you think if Ruth Carpenter was wearing a tricolor balaclava, these people would like her more?
Yeah. Which people? Louise Byrne or what? The other...
These people tweeting at her.
Yeah, she should have been waving a big old trickler. And be like, well,
she's Irish, so I like it.
Yeah.
That's the most important
thing. That
thing.
was it. So the article that I don't know what I think of this. I'm not entirely sure, but basically in McCarthy's area, where is it? In Monaghan. So in where our pal Val lives.
I thought he was from Cavan. Didn't we figure that out?
I don't know. Cavan, Monaghan.
No, we found out his town. We found out his town.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, I think it is Cavan.
What was his town?
Val Martin is from... Where's he fucking from? King's Court.
I thought he was from Blackhorse. Oh no, were we in Blackhorse?
Yeah. King's Court is in Cavan. Cavan-Meath border.
Some crazy names up there. Coot Hill.
Crazy. Hey, it's not the only crazy thing up here. I'm up here at the moment. Not in, well, north. More north. Anyway, whatever. Shut up. Fuck you.
Yeah, you're in Virginia.
Kansas. Kansas Avenue.
Yeah. Yeah, you could do a very funny
in Carrick
ditty.
McCross.
Yeah, was it?
Huh?
You could do a funny ditty with some of these names. You know? Like, here we go. There was a young woman, was it Virginia from Oldcastle? You know? And
yeah.
She saw a man who went Moolala, was another town. And then she was up the Ballyjam stuff. That's just a slice of old Irish culture, the culture we're all trying to defend, you know what I mean?
And that's the way they would while away the hours of the evening over a fire.
Staring at the map, coming up with rhymes.
That was like, my Irish teacher would be like, trying to be like, oh, I wouldn't, like back to those days where a guy would come in and for a bit of supper, he'd tell you a story about a guy who met the devil at the crossroads.
Yeah.
And he was like, that sounds horrible. That sounds like I would want to fucking kill myself.
Yeah, I might watch Dr. Witch. Do you
remember did I say this on the podcast already? But one time I went out to Inishturk when I was like 7 or something, and there was kids there who were like 12 or 13. They were watching like Kerrang and stuff, and I was like, wow, they're cool. They're intimidating. I'm scared.
Yeah.
And then my friend's dad was like a puppeteer, and it was one of their birthdays. So he took out the puppet, and he was doing it for like a bunch of teenagers. And they were like losing their shit. And it was the most like, once I saw this, I was like so embarrassed You know, it's just like the idea that they were just like, it would just be, he'd finish doing the puppet and then they'd be like, do it again, bring the puppet back out. That's incredible.
It's funny how many of our stories are like, I was somewhere as a teenager and I was scared.
Yeah.
Like I tell the one about going to my first party in Monaghan, being scared of people. Anyway.
So apparently in Monaghan, there was a lad like waving a knife in traffic. This is what the Irish Independent wrote it. Guardian Monaghan arrest arm.
He just met the devil at the crossroads, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's Val. He met the devil at the crossroads.
He said, I want to have the greatest media empire of all time.
Yeah.
The twist in the tale was that he does, but it's in Cavan.
Yeah. So the headline from the Indo is Gardaí in Monaghan arrest armed man after he spotted wielding knife at traffic in broad daylight. And so like just all the right-wing grifters are going fucking ape shit over this. There's no-go zones in Carrickmacross. You know, this type of shit.
Yeah.
The thing about it is like, you know, I feel like this is an evergreen headline. I could always imagine some guy just waving a fucking knife in Carrickmacross.
Yeah.
You know? Like, but
and I feel like
I only have the picture of the... Yeah.
Is he white?
It's hard to tell. You can see him from behind, but he kind of looks...
The reason I'm asking is this: I saw one that was about an Islamicist attack.
Yeah. Well, I believe that. I'll show you. I'll send you the picture. But to me, like...
Because you can imagine if he was white, they'd just be like, oh, that's your man. Sure, he's always white.
Yeah, exactly. Knife. Yeah.
Whereas when he's not white, it's like, now the crossroads is a no-go zone. You know?
I thought you were going to say the crossroads is like now, and I was trying to remember, what's the symbol for Islam?
Oh, yeah. A moon.
Yeah, it's instead of a crossroads, it's freaking moon roads at this point.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they're trying to do these days. Anyway, the picture's in the chat if you want to look at it.
I'll have a look now. BMW.
Yeah, sorry, he's got BMW on his back.
It's BMW.
I know, he's got
it's
a
not even like
BMW.
Like, it's like he got that made himself. Like, it's not like an official BMW jumper. It's like,
and when I look at that, like, and you know, you could kind of be like, his skin is brown, okay? But I was like, it could very easily be these guys who I would have met in the country who are just brown for some reason. You know, like in the Midlands and small towns. There's no guarantee that means, oh, he's a freaking Arab. But even still, like the idea of having, like, this is like Tom from Father Ted, just having a shirt with jumper with writing on it that makes no sense and wielding a knife. It's like a classic Irish character. But apparently now it's like, no, it's indicative of the type of people that they're letting into this country and stay in our precious paint factories for absolutely nothing.
Yeah. There's another thing. I just want to make sure everyone knows I wasn't just like, oh, a fellow with a knife. What color is it?
Yeah.
There was another Ireland's first Islamicist inspired knife attack raises urgent questions about extremist threats. But,
is that Gripped?
No, this is the Irish Examiner.
What the fuck? What the hell? Weird, like, look at this. Sorry, just that Louise Byrne and those journos are just like, you know, surrounding the Gripped guy going like, no, you will not go after our colleague. And it's like, you think that you're filled with integrity, but like, these guys are making you worse, okay? They're like, you are becoming worse people as a result of defending these assholes.
The attack on Father Murphy shows that considerable planning went into it. I don't know, you should be allowed to stab a priest, if I'm honest.
Yeah. If somebody stabbed a priest, you'd be like, he probably did something. You wouldn't be like, oh my God.
What?
Why on earth?
It was like, this is so strange. I think it's funny because it's like, it's trying to be like, he put so much planning into it. First of all, the priest lived, by the way. And it goes, so much planning went into it. And then it's this. The boy planned it. He cycled up on his bike, walked up, and waited.
Okay.
And then when Father Murphy was leaving the barracks, he went over to him. Like, that's not much planning. Let's just go in somewhere and wait it.
Yeah. I was definitely, you could say it's premeditated, like he meant to do it, but when you say there's planning, it's like, it's not like Ocean's 11. He's just like, but yeah, so Matt Carthy, this is from the RTE News. Mark O'Driscoll writes, a public meeting is to take place in Carrickmacross, County Monaghan, following what a local TD has described as an unprecedented level of unease in the town in recent weeks. Sinn Féin deputy Matt Carthy has confirmed that he will host the public meeting next Tuesday. So Matt Carthy decided to call a meeting to kind of bring people together, and then the meeting happened, it seems, yesterday. So this is the next article. Meeting takes place in Carrickmacross over unease in town. Mark O'Driscoll. So the meeting took place, 200 seats in the function room at the Shirley Arms Hotel in, hey, I'm always Arms, but don't call me Shirley. In the town were all filled, while the meeting also spilled out into the hotel foyer. The issue of migration and what was being done to address people's concerns about crime and antisocial behaviour were raised by the floor on several occasions. However, those in attendance also highlighted a range of other issues. These included dereliction, a shortage in the number of GPs in the town and facilities for people with disabilities, a lack of public amenities, and what people described as an inadequate public street lighting. The meeting also heard that the town's nighttime economy had been severely impacted by the closure of several pubs and its nightclub. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. Like, do you think, I don't know, I wasn't there. I don't know what Matt Carthy said at that meeting, but do you think that the idea of something like that happening and then immediately setting up some sort of like meeting to try and get everybody there and try to address concerns in that way, is that a better way to do it than like what the government has been doing, essentially? Or do you think that that just enables, like it encourages that sort of racism and speculation?
No, I think it's probably better. I don't know if I trust Matt Carty to do it, but
yeah,
you know, it is a good it definitely makes people feel more heard, you know, which is always good. But it's the sort of thing, it's a good strategy, but it has to be done in the right way as well. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't sure about it. I thought I'd bring it up just because, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's happening all the time and I just don't know about it until somebody writes an article, but I did, you know, we've criticized Sinn Féin in the past for not sort of like being proactive enough. And I don't know whether I trust Matt Carthy to have kind of put forward a like categorically anti-racist position given their kind of pacification to these elements. But it did strike me as something where it's like, if this does happen and you like offer an opportunity for people to come and kind of say their piece or feel like that they're heard, and maybe be able to provide proper pushback to some of the kind of nastier elements that might be, then it could be something. I'm not sure though. I'm not sure. I was just kind of I was interested by it. I just thought I'd bring it up.
Well, like if he goes off and tries to get more GPs in the area and disability services and stuff, great. You know what I mean? But if he goes off and starts talking about how migrants are making people afraid,
yeah,
that's not so great. Depends what he does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They don't say in the RTE article, but and then, sometimes when they say, and they also brought up these issues, I was like, are you just saying that so they look more reasonable? Because I don't see however many hundreds of people showing up because of the dereliction in the town. It seems to be that they were motivated to show up because of some guy wielding a knife. And like we said... BMW. Yeah, BMW wielding a knife. But it's like, if it was, 20 years ago, somebody wielding a knife in the town, nobody would have given a shit, I don't think. Like, it wouldn't have compelled people. People would have been concerned, but I don't think they would have shown up in these numbers. But because on the mind at the moment, particularly in rural Ireland, is this idea of like, we have so little and they're sending in these, undesirable migrants. The Ukrainians we could house, these guys we can't. And we're inundated and they're making us take on too heavy a burden.
Yeah.
These brown folk. I also love...
Hardly a tricolour between them.
I like in this one is like how they can prevent rural crime. I always love the term rural crime as if there's a distinction between what happens in rural Ireland as opposed to this. These are like,
you hear about people, they go to milk the cows and their neighbour has sucked all the milk out in the middle of the night. That's rural crime. What else are rural crimes?
Rural crime...
digging turf in your neighbour's yard. That's always a big one. Your neighbour's bog.
Eating too much of your neighbour's slurry without permission.
Yeah. You're like, why is my slurry bill so high? And then you go out and you check in your slurry pit and there's like a pipe that's siphoning the slurry into your neighbour's house.
Rural crime. I'm also thinking of, anytime I think of rural crime, I just think of like that Punch magazine illustration of like the kind of gorilla looking Irishman wearing the little hat walking around with a knife to stab, like agrarian violence, stabbing cattle. It's just...
That is how it feels when you're out there though. When you're in a cottage in the middle of the night. Like when we were in Ballyshannon, I was looking out the window because I was in the middle of the night checking if there were any like Irish monkey hybrid men trying to like eat the rubber off my tires.
Oh God. Yeah, I love that the guard's response was also very funny. I don't know. Like, meanwhile, Gardaí also issued a separate... So the guards didn't show up to the meeting, which is very funny. The local Gardaí and representatives from the executive of Monaghan County Council had been invited to attend the meeting, but declined, and instead provided detailed statements to Deputy Carthy. Meanwhile, Gardaí also issued a separate statement to RTE News ahead of tonight's meeting. In the statement, Gardaí said that there has been an overall reduction of 4% in reported crime at Carrickmacross Garda Station last year compared to 2023. They also said that Louth Cavan Monaghan Division is currently policed by 704 members of an Garda Síochána of all ranks, and this represents a 16% increase on Garda numbers in the then Cavan Monaghan and Louth divisions compared to 10 years ago. So they just kind of go like, well, actually, statistically, you don't feel unsafe.
Yeah.
So just...
I like that thing of there's been fewer crimes reported, which could be that they just stopped answering the phone,
Yeah.
They have like loads of numbers blocked from people who keep getting like, there's one guy that just keeps getting burgled, so they block his number. Like, done.
Oh, must be something amazing. I told you that like somebody I know that their dad got a dodgy box from the local rural guard. The local rural guard, whatever, the guard. But like, I just imagine that this guard, like somebody tells them like, yeah, there's this kind of technology that is illegal. And then their first instinct is like, amazing. I'm going to use this straight away and recommend it to all of my friends.
Yeah. I'm going to make 150 quid off this. Great. Dollar signs in his eyes. Whoa, I can sell these for 15 quid a go.
It's just... Anyway. There's some good articles to talk about this week, some really good ones. Other things that have been on the mind, I've been upset about the... before we get to the articles, I've been upset by Jim O'Callaghan just being like, don't worry, we're going to really make these migrants' life a living fucking hell. Like, he said something recently where basically, like, if you were an Irish citizen, like as in if you get a passport, and you commit a crime, then you could have basically your passport revoked and be deported.
What?
So, yeah, let me look it up. I don't think I'm exaggerating to say this.
Judge Red. He's real old school Fianna Fáil. There's none of this like simpering weak Micheál Martin scolding like an old lady. He's just like, just get the biggest lad in the town, give him a big stick, and like, we'll sort you out.
Get him to work.
Yeah.
This is from gov.ie. Minister for Justice Jim O'Callaghan reinstates revocation of naturalised Irish citizenship. This week, he signed an order to recommence legislation allowing for naturalised Irish citizenship to be revoked in serious cases. So he's basically just created a different tier of person now. Like, you can't...
Like,
you're not
isn't
an
that
Irish
literally
citizen.
what Trump did? Like, I know part of the thing of
that's
Trump
exactly
doing
what he
it
did.
is you don't get a trial. I know there's a slight difference, but like, one of Trump's big things is talking about how he's going to take citizenship off people.
Yeah.
And how Big Jim is doing it.
That's the end of the free bit. Go to patreon.com/CelticLigers to hear the rest, which includes a reading of Fintan O'Toole's latest pile of shite about Kneecap.